Welcome in, I'm Artris, and in this video we're going to be going over Red Purple Luffy, who's gotten actually quite a lot of support with both being in red and purple, because OP09 has just been giving a lot of love to both of those colors. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what the leader does, first off, he's a 6,000 power leader, but 3 life, that's the caveat there. He's an activate main once per turn. If your field has 0 Dawn, or your board has 8 or more Dawn, add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. So he's a leader that's built to turbo ramp, and then once you get to that 8 Dawn, you're able to use your leader ability to ramp 1 up and play a 9 cost on 8. So ultimately playing some big boss monsters a turn earlier than what they would have come out. But before we go into the deck list and the changes that have been made to it, please make sure to drop a like and a sub. It's free and it helps out the channel so much. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description below. So overall, I'd say the deck list hasn't changed too much, but the things that we have added in make quite a difference in how this deck plays. I think the deck is actually a lot more consistent, and you can very easily take away games from a lot of top decks. Starting off, we have 4 Nami. This is very standard. It's an on-play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Straw Hat Crew type card other than Nami, and then add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a great card to just open up with, but additionally, this is a great card to kind of close out the game with, and I say that because this card can find the new 1-cost Gum Gum Giant event that we get in OP09. But more importantly, when you do open up with this, you are very much looking for 2 cards. One, you're looking for the 3-cost Zoro Juro, which we'll get to in a second, and you're also looking for the new 9-cost Luffy, which is a rush unit. So those 2 cards are something you're going to want to open up with, but at the end of the game, if you do have a Nami, you can easily switch this out by just searching for either 2K or a 1-cost counter event. We're running 4 Edward Newgate. This is a 9-cost 10,000 power body. On play, up to one of your leaders gains plus 2,000 power until the start of your next turn. Then you cannot add cards from your life area to your hand by effects during this turn. That second part is only mostly just for the actual Newgate leader. The important part is having plus 2,000 power on top of the 6,000 power you already have. The Dawn ×2 when attacking comes up sometimes. It's a KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. That's pretty good, but you don't really have too much cost reduction. This can get rid of like some small chump blockers, which there are a fair amount in this meta. It also can KO Rebecca, which is pretty important. But overall, the most important thing here is just the buff to your leader. We're running 2 Ben Beckman. This is an addition from OP09. It's a solid 7-cost card, but you're not necessarily wanting to play this all the time. I'm only running 2 of because if I see it, I'm okay with having it, but also I'm okay with pitching it for the 1K counter it has on it. It's an on-play, trash up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a power of 6,000 or less. Trash being a keyword here. It doesn't KO, it trashes, so it bypasses like Sabo, it bypasses like Borsalino. So those cards are just gone with this character. We're running 2 Yasop. Typically, your 5 Dawn turn isn't going to be like a Yasop play, but it is a pretty solid card regardless because what it's on play is up to one of your leaders gains 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, so it's kind of like a mini Newgate in a way. And the Dawn ×1 when attacking can come up sometimes. Up to one of your opponent's characters gets a minus 1,000 power for the turn. So power reduction, but more importantly, another buff to your leader. Then we're running 4 Bond Clay. This is a great card if you're going second. More times than not, you're going to want to go first with this deck, but for the times that you do have to go second, mulliganing for a Bond Clay will really help you get to your 9 Dawn a lot faster. So on play, you just add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active, and then when attacking, choose up to one of your opponent's characters. That character, or this character rather, has the same base power as that character for this turn. So it's a pretty big threat because sometimes your opponent late game will have some bodies that are really big. This will copy those stats and you can swing in with this character. I mentioned that one of the cards you're going to want to look for with Nami is the Zoro Juro. This is a great card going first. You're going to always want to have this in your hand going first. You're going to mulligan for this card. This will unlock your deck. When you play this down on your turn 2, then the following turn, what you can do is you can swing really big with it. You can go like 7 and then 9 with your leader. You can go 8-8 if you so choose. And then the following turn, you're going to be at 8 Dawn. And then you can use your leader ability to go to 9 and then play like the Newgate or the 9-cost Luffy. So this card is very important for the deck. Your opponent is not going to be able to answer this that easily, that early into the game. The only deck that can do that easily would be Lucci, but to be honest, Lucci's kind of a hard deck to face anyway. You kind of have to really pressure them as well to your best of your ability. The Zorajuro, though, will really unlock the deck against most every other deck that you do play. I didn't really talk about what the ability does, but what it does is super important. When attacking, if you have 3 or less life, which you do because you are a 3 life leader, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So this will help you ramp up quite fast. We have 2 of very important cards here. It's a 10 cost Time Walk Luffy. Now on play, Dawn -10, place all of your characters other than this character at the bottom of your deck in any order. Then after this turn, take another turn. You can activate main once per turn and pay 1 Dawn and add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. You're going to want to use this as a finisher. I don't recommend playing it earlier than that, but what you typically will do with this deck is just continue to pressure face. I don't think this is a deck that really wants to play for the board as much because the bodies that you have on the board are going to be strong enough to just pressure your opponent down. And then once your opponent gets down to like 1 life, you can safely, for the most part, safely play this character and then finish a game because you get an extra turn. And they're going to have to basically counter out of a bunch of attacks. And then also they have to worry about this card coming down, getting an extra turn, and then having to counter out of 2 more attacks after that. We're running 4 of the 2K Sanji. This is a 6 cost, 6,000 power body that acts as a blocker, but also it's a cheap blocker if you have 2 or fewer Dawn cards than your opponent. So on turns where you do play this Time Walk Luffy that I just talked about, and maybe you can't finish the game out quite yet, you will be at a Dawn total where you can play this down for 3. So there are times where that does happen. Otherwise, this will be a nice 2K counter that is searchable from Nami. And then the new addition from OP09, we have the 9 cost, 10,000 power body from Monkey D. Luffy. On play, you may return 1 or more Dawn cards from play to your Dawn deck, and then draw 1 card. Then this character gains Rush for this turn. The draw card is huge here. Luffy has historically just had a problem with having a low hand size, but because of this card being able to replace itself on play, and then with the Dawn reduction, you can then use your leader ability to get that Dawn standing back up. So you are very efficiently playing this card in this deck. I do see some decks run more top end, like 10 cost Shanks, either the KO version or the Rush version. However, because we want to leave Dawn open for our Gum Gum Giant event, I think it's more important to have a bunch of 9 cost characters. And obviously we do have 2 10 cost characters, but those 10 cost characters are the game finishers. Whereas these cards, like the 9 cost Luffy and the 9 cost Newgate, are cards that will get you closer to finishing the game, not necessarily cards that will finish the game for you. I'm running 4 Queen in this deck. It is a strong blocker ever since it came out at the beginning of the game. It is an on-play Dawn -1, draw 2 cards and trash 1 card from your hand, being able to draw a little bit deeper into the deck, and then also filtering out like the worst card in your hand. Just great value overall. Typically, you're going to want to play these late game. You don't really want to play these on curve because you don't want to minus Dawn that early. So what you do is you get to a point of the game where maybe you have like a big body or 2. You could be down to like 1 life, whatever it may be, and then play your queen down on like 10 Dawn. You can play 2 queens in a turn and be generally okay, minusing those 2 Dawn and then drawing 4 cards, discarding 2. Queen is ultimately a great card to be able to play towards the end game to make sure you stay alive. Next, I'm running 4 of the 7 cost, 8,000 power body Eustace Captain Kidd. It says on play and when attacking Dawn -1, up to one of your leaders gains plus 1,000 power until the start of your next turn. I'm sure you see a lot of synergy here with the Yasop, with the Kidd, with the Newgate. All of these will pump your leader up very high and keep him at a high total where maybe you're Luffy on 5, you drop the Yasop, he'll be a 7k leader for a turn. You drop the Kidd on the next turn, he's a 7k leader again. And then the following turn, you can go Newgate, and then with the Captain Kidd swinging, Luffy's a 9k leader. And that's very hard for a lot of people to come over. I mean, the Black Yellow Luffy leader is one of the best decks of the format for a reason, because of the fact that he consistently stays at 9k towards the end of the game. Luffy being able to do that towards the mid to late game is also very strong, and one of the reasons why I think this deck excels at basically just pummeling your opponent for a couple of turns until they don't have any more counter in hand. Then we have another playset of 2k in Usohachi. I really like this card in pretty much every purple deck I play as a playset of, because on play, if you have 8 or more Dawn, you're able to rest an opponent's character that costs 5 or less. So this is a great card to be able to rest a blocker and go for game. or whatever you may want to do. But keep in mind that like if you are going for game, most of your going for game plays will take place with the 10 cost Luffy. So you have to be at 8 Dawn for that to happen. But if you don't have the 10 cost Luffy and you have other big bodies on board, like the Newgate or the Rush Luffy, then Usohachi is a great card to be able to bypass those blockers and just push at face. Then we have 4 of the new, I guess it's kind of new. It's also from the starter deck 18, like Usohachi. It's a blocker. It says on play, if you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, then trash 1 card from your hand and then draw 2 cards. It's a reverse Queen ultimately. And what's really strong here is you can play Onami and you can also play Queen in the same turn and then do the same thing here, right? You're drawing 4, discarding 2. Filtering out your hand is really important in this game because we do have, or I guess not in this game, but necessarily with this deck, it's more important because we have a lot of, as you can see, bricks. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, and then 18, right? We have a lot of bricks here. And so being able to get rid of a lot of these bricks that you might not be able to play is very efficient here. And you can do this with Onami, you can do this with Queen. And so, as you can see, this deck has a lot of consistency pieces built into it, and that's what's really important here. And then finally, the last piece of consistency is the new Gum Gum Giant, a 1-cost counter event that says Dawn minus 2. You may trash 1 card from your hand if your leader has the Straw Hat Crew type. Give up to one of your leader or characters plus 4,000 power for this battle, then draw 2 cards. So it replaces itself with 2 more cards. You're not going positive, you're going net neutral here because you're spending the 1, so you're paying the 1, you're using the event, and then you have to trash 1, so you're trashing 2 cards ultimately, and then drawing 2, but you're also trashing the worst card in your hand, so you're filtering your hand further. Yet again, another consistency piece that really puts Red Purple Luffy, I think, as one of the better decks in the format. I think that this deck has kind of struggled for a little while because, well, 3 life does suck, but you are at a 6k body, which is really nice. If you've ever played Newgate, it feels good. If you played this leader, you probably understand that it does have a lot of power behind it, but the problem is consistency and draw power. But I think a lot of that is fixed with like the Nami being able to search out a lot of your top end. And also if you need to like be a little bit more defensive with what you search out with Nami, you can. Obviously, you can't really find the Newgate, so you do have to draw into those, but you have draw pieces like this 9-cost Luffy, the Queen, the Onami, the Gum Gum Giant. There's plenty of ways to get there. So ultimately, this deck is, I think, as a contender for maybe an A-tier deck, one that you should really look out for. If you haven't tested it out, I really recommend it because it feels very solid. It's one of these decks that there's always like these tech pieces that get added in here and there. I think I saw like a couple sets back, people were playing Kings in the deck, the one that KOs a 4 cost or less, and that's fine. But I think that the fact that you just ramp up so quickly with this deck and you can continuously just drop big bodies shouldn't be laughed at. This deck is quite scary when it gets going. So, but enough yapping about that. Let's take it into the sim and show actually what it can do. All right, against Shanks, we actually have a pretty strong advantage against this deck because we are doing what Shanks wants to do, but we do it faster. And we have a Zorojuro, which is all we can ask for, really. I think what's important here is that we don't have top-end pieces, but we do have the Zorojuro, and we can always just kind of draw into them naturally. So let's hope for the best, but I don't think this hand is worth mulliganing to try to be more greedy for top-end, just because we do have the Zorojuro. I do say that this is the most important card in the deck because of the fact that you are able to ramp up quickly with it. So they have grabbed with their Uta Searchers a 10-cost Rush Shanks, which, like I said in the beginning, I think that this deck could run 10-cost Rush Shanks, but I'm not sure if it's worth it. And they also grab a KO Shanks. So they have some pretty beefy boys coming our way. We have to keep that in mind and be careful there, but I think we should be okay ultimately. We can probably just like pressure them really hard. So let's go ahead and play the Zorojuro down, and then swing 6 with our leader. Surprised they didn't counter out of that one because usually Shanks will counter out like the first couple attacks and kind of stay healthy here. As purple or red purple Luffy, I don't mind taking usually the first hit. It's not that scary. Oh, and perfect. We drew into the Newgate. So now we have a game plan. What we can do here is we can swing 5 and just ramp up naturally, play the Yasop down, pump our leader up, and then swing 8. Now, I could have swung really heavy with the Zorojuro and then maybe swing heavy with the leader, but I think it's also important to bump our leader up to a 7k power on defense so that if Shanks decides to go really hard here, it's going to be hard for them. I guess I said hard twice there. It's going to be really difficult for them to be able to attack in if that's the case. But they decide to opt into swinging to the Zorojuro, which once the Zorojuro has kind of like done the swing and it's already done its ability, you don't mind if it goes. Like, sure, it can continue to swing here, but I think it's fine because we can play this Newgate down. We also, can just swing 6 at lead, maybe bait out their leader ability. We're kind of trying to hope to bait. They don't take the bait. That's fine. What we'll do is we'll swing another 6 here, and I think it's more important because if we swing 8 into the Luffy, they can use their leader ability and do a 2K. That's why I swung the Yasop first to try to get the leader ability out. But because they didn't use their leader ability on the Yasop, I think we just swing 6 at face and we hold back the Newgate for a turn and instead play this Luffy down. I think that might be a better play because I don't actually want this rush Luffy to be swinging at me every turn. That is a little bit of a threat, and especially if I'm trying to establish like blockers late game and I haven't handled it quite yet, then it could be a problem. But this next turn, we actually have a pretty solid play where we can just play Newgate down, leave 1 open for the Gum Gum Giant, and just be super tanky. Hopefully they're not using the Hongo, which is a minus 3,000 power on a character. Hopefully they're not using, or sorry, minus 2,000 power. That's a little bit more balanced. Hopefully they're not using it on the 9-cost Luffy, because if they are, I don't have the ability to really protect it if they decide to go all in on this. But maybe they're just taking their time to decide what would be the better play. I'm hoping they go off on the Yasop, because Yasop's done his job. He buffed me up. He got a swing in. And I think that's all I can ask for, really. And if this 9-cost Luffy goes down, yeah, I'm going to be pretty upset, because the more pressure I can add with big bodies, the happier I'll be. Perfect. They go for the Yasop. And I wonder if they're going to play maybe like swing 6. They're at 8 Dawn, so they could swing 6 at lead. Maybe play a Backman, but they wouldn't have needed to Hongo if that's the case. They could be using a Hongo as bait. But either way, I don't really mind. Although I will say if they do drop the 10-cost Shanks, then I think that, Hongo could be a problem. But we don't have anything that's like, they can just kill anything anyway, right? Because Hongo is minus 2,000. The KO Shanks KOs a 10-cost, so it gets all of our stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I guess it could get the 10-cost Time Walk Luffy, but we're using it. Oh, speak of the devil. We're using it as a finisher anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. We'll swing 8 at lead. We're just pressuring face hard here. They did play Silver's Rayleigh, which on play, if you have 2 characters on the opponent's side of the field that are original power 5,000 or less, you draw 2 cards and then trash 1. So a good way to filter and also add a little bit of a buffer as a protection unit here. If they're going to counter out of anything, it would be this attack here. 8 to 5 is probably easy for them. They left up 2 Dawns, so they could probably just Red Hawk if that's the case, or like use a counter event. I don't know why they're thinking about it though, because like if I was them, I would probably just counter out of this one and then take the Luffy, or you just block the Luffy and stay at 3 life. But most of the times as Shanks, it's not a bad thing to go down to 2 life. You can stabilize around 2 and then start putting out big bodies. This next turn though, we do have a Shanks coming down no matter what. Just what flavor of Shanks? I'm not, oh, that sounded weird. But, is it the KO version or is it the Rush version? We'll see which one they decide is better in the moment. Yeah, Red Hawk, of course, and then 10. Because I have a tapped unit, the Rush Shanks might just be better. They could go like Hongo and then Rush in. And I might just have to let it go, because if they go Hongo, it goes down to 8, and then it goes down to 7, and then 7 is not easily defended against a 12. They just decided to do KO Shanks, which actually might be the better play, because then they'll, on the follow-up when I do tap my Luffy, it'll be a little bit of a problem here. So we'll go 6 into 5. That Nami search was actually pretty good. Being able to grab another Rush Luffy here, drawing a card off of it in a second, and then leaving 1 open for the Gum Gum Giant. Super crucial here, but we also have to be aware that we do need to get them down low enough. So this 6 to 5 is probably not the best attack. So hopefully this 10, at least one of these 10s go through so that we can get them down to 1 life. Now keep in mind, like I said, this deck actually does pretty well against Shanks, but we have reached the end game. I say end game, like end game for Shanks right now. And so they're just going to continuously drop big bodies. Them going down to 1 is actually pretty big for me, because now I'm very comfy, playing my 10 drop this next turn. And if we can protect, because we're going for game next turn, if we can protect both of these 10 drops, or I keep saying 10, but 9 drops, then perfect. That is amazing for us. We would be very happy with that. But if we can come away with at least 1 9-cost Luffy, that will be great for us to be able to pressure them really hard next turn as well, because we can swing with the Luffy, we can play the 10 cost Time Walk Luffy, swing 7 with our lead, take an extra turn, swing 10 with lead, I think it is, and then 12 with the Time Walk Luffy. And I don't think they'll be able to counter out of all of those with only 1 life left. And if they decide to play a 10 cost Shanks, they're not going to have Dawn open for any kind of counter events, which that's the only real way that Shanks can stay alive in these situations. But I think this is a really crucial turn as well for them. I think, once again, Hongo will probably be a really good investment for them to play down that early. -2 to one of these Luffys, and then the Rush Shanks coming down, swinging 12 and then 12 into it. We can actually defend at least one of them, because we can go like Gum Gum Giant, pitch the Kid, draw 2, and then pitch a 2K. Pretty solid overall, but we'll have to see. We just have to see what they do here. They have a couple of different plays they could make. They could also go like Rayleigh. I don't know if Rayleigh is necessarily the best play to make here, but if they're wanting to like say stay super safe and have Dawn open for any kind of counter events, then that's really good for them. They might be just doing like this to guarantee that they get rid of this. I think we just let it go. Let me see if we can actually do math here. We go Gum Gum Giant +4 goes to 12. Then we go Uso Hachi. We'd have to draw into a 2K, and that's not really guaranteed, but maybe we just go for it. See if we can protect it. Oh boy, we got it. We got the 2K here. That's really good for us. We will go ahead and use these. That was really a pretty big risk, but I think it paid off. If they decide to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 into it, well, it'll go at that point, but that's a huge Dawn investment from them as well. Anything like less than that, if they decide to go like Red Hawk, they'd have to swing 9 into this, and we'd have to let it go, or not, actually not let it go. We can protect it pretty easily. Oh, the last 4 were for Lucky Roo. Okay, that's fine. We don't really care about Lucky Roo, because Lucky Roo, what? It gets rid of our Nami. We're not swinging with it anyway, so we'll go ahead and swing 10. They could use leader ability and give us like 2, 2, 1. Or they could just straight up block it off the bat and get rid of the Nami in case they feel like the Nami is a threat. And if they decide to take this 10, I mean, I could just do 16, but I think the safe play is to do the Time Walk Luffy no matter. I think that we actually were able to draw into our stuff pretty well. Yeah, their hands were bricked up, so they were not able to counter out of that. And then on top of that, the 16 would have come through very easily. All right, Red Yellow Sabo. I just am hard mulliganing for like the Zoro, which we got the Nami into the Zoro. So we're off to the races here. We are able to at least ramp up pretty quickly. Unfortunately, though, once again, we don't really have any top-end pieces that we have other than 10 cost Luffy. We could play that, really like ramp up fast and play that if we really want to, but I like to use it as a closer. Although it could be good to just play it out first and then ramp it back up, because you can do that really quickly and then start playing bigger bodies again after that. But yeah, I think our best play this next turn could be like maybe just Zoro Juro, obviously, is our best player, our only play really. We'll go 6 and then play out the Zoro Juro. And then the following turns, what I'm thinking about is, do we swing like a 6 or a 7 and then play out the Nami and see if we can get a 9 cost? Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll have to see what we draw into this next turn and kind of play it by ear from there. But that might be our better play. So we could go like 7, 8, and then a Nami. Ooh, Karasu is actually really good against me. That's actually kind of devastating, because if they are able to swing with that every turn, that means I'm a 5K leader. And that sucks. That does not feel good. So yeah, we'll swing 7 here. And then we are able to ramp up 1, which means the following turn we can actually play out this Newgate and pump our leader up by an additional 2. But I think it's also probably important to be able to play out this Nami. They're able to counter out of this, which that's fine, because they might think the 9 is coming. Ooh. I think that, okay, as much as I wanted to get the 9 cost Luffy there, I think that the 2K is more important, because as you see, the Karasu is going to be putting in work against us, and we need to be able to counter out more efficiently. Although we did pass up 2 of the 9 cost Luffys, I think it's okay, because we do have a Newgate followed up with the 10 cost Luffy if we can get them low enough in life. But of course, Sabo is able to heal up pretty easily every turn if that's the case. So this might be a situation where they go and, well, they can't actually use their leader ability this turn, which is pretty solid for us. The Karasu also cannot attack and minus us by too much, because they only have 1 Dawn here. So they can only put the Dawn on their leader, or they put the Dawn on the Karasu, and I think that they would rather just put it on the leader. Able to play a Bello Betty out, and the Bello Betty, if they're at 2 or less life, draws them a card. I think they probably should have just pressured face, because once the Zorojuro gets 1 swing in, you're good. You don't need it anymore after that. And as you see, we have 2 Newgates, so the next 2 turns are pretty much solved for us at this point. And I'm not feeling too threatened. They could do some big cheeky swings here with like maybe the Karasu going 7 first, and then pumping up like the Bello Betty, or pumping up like the Ivankov. There's a lot of things that they could do. We're actually not in the best of positions, and no, double Karasu. Yeah, this is rough. This version of Sabo is like pretty good, especially against us. I don't know if it's good in general, but it's like especially good against us because they are able to reduce our 8k leader down to 6. And so let's counter out of what we can, because I don't want to be at too life of, I don't want to be at too low of a life total. If that's the case, I think 1 we can be okay with. Yeah, we have to counter out of this one, unfortunately. And I want to keep the queen up because I do need a blocker of some sort. Now, the important thing here is, are we able to get rid of this Karasu? Because that is a big threat. I don't think it's worth it, to be quite honest, because 8 to 7 is not really going to do the job. And so I think instead we just kind of race them. I think it's important that we just like establish dominance. Put them down to 0, which means that they have to push for game here. And I think we're like comfortable enough to be able to counter out of a lot of this stuff. So we can counter out with the Zorojuro. The next Karasu, we can counter out with an Usohachi. And then what we can do after that is if they swing pretty big here, we have a couple of defensive units. We can take a life as well. So we have the life buffer. They're going to swing Kuma pretty bigly, or I guess bigly. Is that a word? That's not a word. I sound like an idiot. Do we take this? I think we can just counter out with the Gum Gum Giant. And then I think we pitch the Queen, which I'm going to say this is really greedy, but, you know, maybe it's worth it. Because now what they can do is they can swing 7-7, and we can counter out of that. Because they divide it between the Bello Betty and their leader, and we'll have just enough to be able to get out of one of these. Maybe, you know, with the life would have been more safe, but I think this is fine. This is a really, you know, I think that this actually, the way that this is built is pretty solid. I really like how this red-yellow Sabo has been built. Let's take it because, well, we're fine. Ooh, just enough. Just enough. I mean, we had it anyway, but yeah, just enough. Those Karasu's put in work. So now we're just going to go 10 into 5, and then 10 into 5. We could have swung really big there, but always play the 10 cost Luffy if you had the chance. Ooh, Newgate. This is not a leader I've seen in quite some time, but I remember when this Luffy came out, it was really interesting to go against Newgate, because like both Newgate and Luffy would just stack a lot of Dawn on each other and just swing for the fences. It was quite the time for sure. It was very interesting to say the least. And maybe the strat's still there. I don't know. But we can go ahead and play the Bonclay out and then swing 7 into 6. They'll likely counter out of a lot of the stuff that they can counter out of, because I don't think that Newgate really wants to take too much life. But ooh, this ace is actually really solid for them, swinging 6 into 6. We can take 1 and then counter out of the other one. I'm not too scared of going down low in life total overall. But I think what's important here is we need to be able to swing into bodies more so than anything else. So let's swing 6 into 6. They'll likely give us a counter here. And then 9 into 6 could be good. Oh, they just let it go. I'm honestly a little bit surprised, which is very interesting here. We'll go 6 into 6 and then play out this Onami. I think we have to pitch a Gum Gum Giant because, well, I think pitching a 2K feels a little foolish there. We do have a great endgame, and we're able to play out our Newgate ahead of them, I believe. Yeah, we should be able to play out the Newgate a turn ahead of them. Of course, they're going to swing into the Bonclay. If they do play a Newgate, that's also very threatening for them. The 9-cost Newgate on their side of the field pumps up our Bonclay, which is very nice. But we'll swing 8 into 7, and then they have to be worried about this Newgate really doing some work this next turn. The fact that they counter out of that one makes me think that this is the turn where they're playing Newgate down. And that's fine. I kind of expect it. If that's the case, then we easily block with the Onami, because the Onami at that point will be fodder for them to be able to put 2 on their Newgate and then pop it. Oh, I see what they're doing. I think they're setting up for a Newgate because the Newgate, if they played it down, they'd have to worry about 2 Newgate swings coming through, the Bond Clay and also the Newgate himself. And that's just very troublesome. So the Beckman being able to set that up is, or at least get rid of it, is nice. Oh, draw into another Newgate here. We are out Newgating the Newgate. We'll go 8 into 6, probably counter out if I were them. And then the 10 into 6 is going to be difficult. But they probably have like some counter events that they can use. The Rad Beam and a 1K. Yeah. The fact that they're protecting themselves at 1 life, I think this is the setup for their own Newgate turn. We'll have to see that if that's the case, though. They might also feel the pressure, the fact that they only have 5 cards in hand, and, you know, that could be a problem for them. But I guess it's not. They will play the Newgate. Newgate's usually the best turn play that they can have, and we'll easily counter out of that with a 1K. We could have just blocked as well, but this also guarantees that they're not able to use their Newgate ability. Yeah, 10 into 10. Their hand was bricked up. We were able to just get it off of the second Newgate swing. All right, into Lucci. Finally, we see a Lucci player. I feel like I have played so much Sim, and where are the Lucci players at? They never show up. I'm always going against like Shanks or I don't know, whatever is the popular deck of the month, and that's not a problem, but I know that some people in the comments are like, oh, play against Lucci, play against this, and it's like, well, I just don't come across these decks, but now we have. So anyway, on to Lucci. I think that this is going to be an interesting deck for us to play against because they can just get rid of a lot of our bodies. I think it's just safe to go ahead and get the guaranteed ramp with the Bond Clay as opposed to putting the Zoro out, because if we put the Zoro out, it has to survive for a turn and then it can swing. It's not going to be able to do that. They have enough CP9 to be able to play, like I thought a Kaku was coming down. If they swung 5, it makes sense. So the Kaku comes down and pops the Bond Clay. That's unfortunate. But the Bond Clay is not like a huge threat as well. Unless, of course, they have Moria out. But it's easy for them to get rid of that stuff. I think, unfortunately, we actually have to just play the Queen down this early and then swing 8. I just want to draw a little bit more, and I don't have any other plays to make. And I think that's fine. I think the following turn we'll be going to 8 Dawn, and then we can actually play out the Rush Luffy and really pressure them there. I don't expect this Queen to survive, to be quite honest. We hopefully let it survive, and if it survives, I'm swinging with it, because the fact that if this thing stays on the field, at any point in time, it might just get removed. And so if we have the opportunity to swing with this Queen, let's do it. But, you know, it's Lucci. Nothing ever survives against Lucci. So they also have an enormous hand size right now. They're at 9 cards in hand. So we're looking kind of rough. I know that they've taken 2 life, but it's not looking great for us. Usually Lucci with the hand size this big feels pretty comfortable going into the game. This is a very interesting play here. They have 6 Dawn left. What could they have? They decide not to minus the Queen. Maybe they just don't have the ability to get rid of it, and they decide not to like even bother wasting time clicking on the Queen. Could be something. Who knows? They swing 5 just to mill out a little bit. And then they obviously are going to swing with the Kaku, 6-6. Easy counter out. We'll give them the Onami. And then, I don't know, they could play out a Sabo, maybe play out another Searcher. They have so many different plays they can make. It's kind of hard for me to guess, especially 6. 6 is a really like awkward spot. They could also just have like I don't know, a removal piece or a cost reduction. Nope, it's just a Rebecca. That's not the scariest thing in the world, to be honest. Interesting. Why do they leave 2 Dawn up? I'm not quite sure. Regardless, I'm swinging with this Queen. It's turning sideways. So we're going to swing 6. We're going to swing 6. I'm sure that they're going to be able to counter out of all of this. Does Lucci run counter events? I don't know. Maybe they should have swung 7. I would have probably countered out of it regardless. But anyway, I digress. We'll swing 10. The rush units are really good here. I don't think it's worth throwing out this Newgate, to be quite honest, because Newgate's a little too slow for Lucci. If anything doesn't attack the turn it's played, it's probably going to be dead the following turn. And even if it does attack the turn it's played, it'll probably be dead this turn. So I'm fully expecting like one of these units, probably the 9-cost Luffy, to be gone by the end of this turn, which is sad. You know, I would like this Luffy to stay on the board. Why does Lucci always got to ruin my fun? I don't know, man. All right. 4 into 6. Clearly, they're just trying to get some cost reduction down, so it's down to 8. They are at 3, 6, 9, and their trash doesn't have anything really to be able to KO off of a Moria play. Down to 7. This could be a Kaido. Okay, yeah, Kaido coming down. And I think it's safe to go ahead and just pitch the Newgate because, like I said, we're not really playing this Newgate. It's just too slow for what we're wanting to do. 6 into 6. I feel like this attack might have been better to go to the Queen, but regardless, I'm going to counter out of it anyway. We'll go 6 into 5. This Queen is putting in work. We are swinging with this Queen every day of the week. We're going to go ahead and throw out this Luffy, and the reason why is because I want to activate a Dawn and swing 7. 7's a little bit harder for them to counter out of. A little bit more annoying, rather, not harder per se. And then we'll swing 10. This one is guaranteed. They do have a 6 King pistol to be able to counter out of the 7, which is good for them. Unfortunately, though, we don't have a great way of closing out the game right now. What we need is the 10 cost Time Walk Luffy, and we don't have a way to get it other than the Nami, and that means we can't play at the same turn. But I think this next play could be good, or like the next turn might be solid if we can go ahead and maybe play out the Nami, see what we get off the Nami, and then make a play from there. They go Tempest Kick, -3 to the Luffy, so it's down to 6. Now, what else can they do here? Ice Age, Tempest Kick, Ice Age. They could swing with the Brook and just get rid of it, and then swing really heavy into the Queen. They're down to 1. They might want to just establish something. They could also go like Moria. I think Moria might be a solid play here. Moria into like a Rebecca. We'll see overall, though. They have so many ways. It's down to 1, so it's gone no matter what. But how would they like to do it is the question. Can they also get rid of the Queen? I don't know. That's interesting. If they have to play a Moria this turn, they can't get rid of our Queen because we do have a Gum Gum Giant in response. And actually, I think it might be better to just play out the Gum Gum Giant at some point during this turn so that we can safely, it might be a Jack, safely be able to draw into something or efficiently draw into something. Once again, no Time Walk Luffy, unfortunately. That's what I was hoping to draw into. But they have 7 remaining, so it's definitely like a Jack, right? It has to be a Jack. Otherwise, they could just swing Brook and get rid of it as well, because it's down to 1. But the other way they could have done this, if it is a Jack, they could have just done like a swing lead, Ice Age, Jack. I think I might want to counter out of this one as well, if this is the case, because, well, if it goes to Queen, I'm countering out for sure. If it goes to Face, I think I might want to counter out as well, because I don't know what else is coming my way. But I think, you know, live on the edge. Let's see what we got. I don't think they can kill me quite yet. So, okay, it is a Rebecca. It's not a Moria. They didn't see a Moria. That's fine for us. Rebecca will grab Khalifa. And what does this play? They could play a Spandine. They could play a Brook. Regardless, I think they're able to get rid of... Okay, so Spandine. I think this is a solid play. Establish a blocker. They don't have a Moria, clearly. Moria is always going to be your best play, but if you can't play a Moria, Rebecca's fine as well. They might just put the rest on Lucci and swing into Queen. They might put the rest on Lucci and swing into Life. They have a couple of different options here. They also could just go like 6-6, but my hand is pretty fat right now, so I think it's fine. I think it'd be better if they went like 8. I don't know. 2 1Ks or a 2 1K. I think a 2 1, yeah, 2 and 1 is better than 2 1Ks. So they should just swing 8 here. But I mean, 6-6 also might be fine too. So, yep, the Luffy's gone and they are swinging 6. Indeed. Do we take it? No, we just counter out. I think going down to 0 might be a little bit crazy. We'll keep the Usohachi because we do need to rest the Rebecca at some point if it is still on the field. This is really awkward, so we're going to swing the 7 into Queen, or sorry, we'll swing the 7 from Queen. They counter out. Wow, they do have the counter there. That's pretty good from them. We'll establish another Queen in a second. Oh, nice. We were able to find the Time Walk Luffy, so we're able to at least establish this Queen, have a blocker out, get rid of the Newgate. And I think it might be okay to just swing another 7 or maybe 8 here. I think I might want to leave up 2 just in case I draw into another Giant. we'll use the one giant, and then we can draw into another giant. So we have like so many different plays going on that we're kind of like hoping to not draw into another giant because I don't want to have to force myself to go down to 8. Going down to 8 means that we can't use the 10 cost Time Walk Luffy the following turn, and that is going to be our key to victory here. 10 into 6. Let this go. It's hard for me to let that go, but I think we have to because it is the first swing. I don't know what else might be coming. And I think it's going to be okay if that's the case. Okay, so they get rid of this queen, but I think that's game at this point because they have one card in hand and there's no way for them to really close out the game at this point. I mean, the Kaidos are good, but I feel like Moria in this situation is so much better just getting the tempo against me. But what can you do? We'll take obviously we can counter out of all of it, but we'll just take it to see what the last life is. And they'll swing Brook to make sure to get rid of the Nami. And then, of course, we'll drop the Luffy and show them exactly what's up, right? We'll go and swing 7. The 7's guaranteed to hit. And then, of course, the Luffy being able to get an extra turn, being able to guarantee the game here. They had double 2K, though. That's pretty strong. But yeah, ultimately, we were able to just really push through and pressure them hard. Overall, I actually think this deck is not the worst deck to play. I think that it does have a couple of rough matchups that you do have to worry about. I think if Lucci sees multiple Morias and out-tempos you, it could be a problem. And the other thing is Dofi being able to establish a bunch of bodies on board and swing for 6 is really, really obnoxious. There's ways to counteract it, like the 7-cost Kid is really good against going against Dofi. There's no way for them to really safely answer it, and the fact that you can pump your leader up to 7 consistently every turn makes it really hard for them to really break through. However, I will say that that matchup can be a bit rough. We didn't see any Dofi players, and I mean, I don't know where all the Dofi players are at in the sim. Are they just over the deck? I'm not quite sure. It's still the best deck in the format easily, but I think against any other deck you go against, you're going to probably have a decent time. If you go against Black Yellow Luffy, I think this is solid. And the other big one that I can think of is maybe Teach. Teach getting rid of like your on-play abilities sucks, but I think you can just ramp up fast enough and then build really big, like huge bodies that they can't easily answer, and then you just push through with all these big bodies coming through. So yeah, and you can also play super defensive as well. You have a lot of blockers, so I think it does well into Teach as well. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like this deck just maybe needs a little extra love. I feel like people forgot about it. Anyways, hopefully you guys get some inspiration to play it yourselves. Really hope you do. As always, I appreciate you guys watching the video and supporting. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.